It's really about just rooting yourself in the present moment. You don't have to react right away, but you just take a breath, be mindful of your thoughts, don't judge them, just let them be and let them come up. Because what we tend to do is we push them away. We start telling ourselves, like, stop thinking about him, stop moaning, stop crying, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is we suppress the emotions and they get compressed. And I call it this volcano effect ends up happening.
I'm Summer.
And I'm Mike.
And we got married with children.
It's been 12 years since we got this gang together.
And we're still running the rapids of living with a blended family.
And sometimes that is just not easy.
If you're looking for support and tools when it comes to divorce, step-parenting, co-parenting, and giving it your best,
you're in the right place.
We're talking about everything.
You ready to get this party started?
Always.
Hello, Everything Always fam, and welcome back. I'm really looking forward to you hearing today's episode with a very special guest. Her name is Wendy Sterling, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of who Wendy is, but she's going to go more into detail on our interview because she has an incredible and very inspiring story. So she came from the corporate world. She was a top level advertising sales exec, and she was in the digital space working with probably the most progressive social and lifestyle brands. Super cool, but also very high pressure. And she was like, you know what? I have it all. I've got a successful career, 2 beautiful children, and a seemingly devoted husband. But like many of us, she endured a traumatic and unexpected divorce. And this is when her world got rocked. Have you been there? I know I have been there. But that was the moment that changed everything for her. And she decided that the whole the whole poor me attitude was not going to work for her anymore. And that's when things started to really shift. And I'm going to let her tell that story. But ultimately, what she's doing now is she's helping women and men too get through divorce. And she just went all in, following her heart, and created this incredible business where every day she gets to help people get through this. I wish that I had her when I was going through my divorce because, well, I know I would have felt a lot less lonely because regardless of having family and friends, sometimes people just don't get it unless they've been through it. And she's the person that's been through it. And she has such a mature and beautiful way of looking at things. And I'm really invite all of you to take to heart the stories that she shares. I need to tell you also, you have to listen to the end because she has an extremely generous give that she is offering listeners. So wherever you're at, I mean, there's some people that it's been years since their divorce and they still have not recovered from it. And you might even be asking, how do I know if I've recovered from it or not? Well, we're going to cover all of that in today's interview. Before we dive in, we have another open letter that we received that I would like to share. So I'm going to share this letter and then we will dive in to the interview. Of course, an anonymous letter. To my husband's ex-wife. It's been 7 years that I've been with your ex-husband, and for 5 of those, we have been married. I'm writing this anonymous letter because of something that recently happened, and it stirred up a lot of resentment that I thought was over. I'm learning through my bonus sons, your children, how much you dislike me. I'm even learning that you are spreading this to our daughter, who is their sister. You've already made it clear that you don't like the rules we have at our house. You've made it clear to us many times. We have respected what you do at your house, and we've even listened when you told us your opinion of what we do. But to then dump your opinions that are clearly against us to your boys is too far. Here's why it really makes me mad. I can take it if you're going to be nasty to my husband and I, but when you bring in innocent kids and then my daughter, what exactly are you trying to prove? I'm writing this letter not only to get it off my chest, but also to wish you some sort of peace in this new year. The kind that takes the attention off of us and puts it back to you. I ask that you focus on your own happiness instead of constantly picking on what we do and how we do it. Your boys really love you and look up to you. This is your time to be a role model for them. We all should be. I've stepped up to the plate and I love them like they are my own. I want to be the best for them, and I'm hoping you do too. I understand you have anger towards my husband still, and maybe that will never go away, but please don't drag that into the boys and my daughter's life. It's not fair to any of them. I've always wanted a good relationship with you, but I just don't see how it's possible if you keep spreading venom. It's been 7 years now since I've been in their life. They've known me since they were so small. I'm not going anywhere, and I know that they love me. They are such good big brothers to their little sister, and they deserve to feel loved by everyone, and most of all, they should see respect amongst us all. My Christmas wish this year is that we all have the strength and maturity to create as much peace as possible for these kids. From not the new wife, as you refer me as, but the wife. Wow. Thank you so much for submitting that. I think many listening can relate to a lot of that, and I'm glad you got that out. I'm glad I felt it. I really felt it. So thank you so much for sharing. And who knows, maybe that person is listening, maybe not, but maybe somebody who's in that position either relates to this and feels that great cathartic feeling of somebody expressing the same frustrations. Or maybe there is the ex-wife listening and going, that could be me. And maybe there's some changes that I could make. In either case, thank you so much for sharing. Keep those letters coming in. I feel like it makes us feel better that people are getting it out and releasing those emotions and those feelings. And it is 100% anonymous. So if you want to do the same, head over to everythingalways.co and just click on forum, and you could submit your letter totally anonymously. All right, now to this amazing interview with Wendy Sterling.
Hi, Wendy. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Welcome.
Hello, Summer. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be fun. We just had a little bit of fun together trying to figure out sound on our computers, but I think we've got it.
I know, right? Technology, it's never reliable. This week, I tried to do a couple of lives on Facebook, and all of a sudden my computer just said no. And I had to do it from my phone. So who knows?
You know what? I feel like people are forgiving these days because there's a pandemic. There's all crazy things happening. So I think people are forgiving.
I agree. I agree.
So excited to share all of your genius with our audience today.
Thank you. I'm excited to share.
So let's start with your story and how you created your business. I talked a little bit about it in the intro, but I'd love to hear your story of how you created this business, why this became so important to you.
Sure. I love sharing my story because one of the things us divorcees don't do enough is being authentic and vulnerable. And I find that by sharing my story, it lets others know that they're not alone going through this experience. So I believe that divorce can be the most empowering experience that anybody goes through to find their true identity and voice, to start designing a life that they love instead of feeling stuck with the one that they have. And the reason that I know that is because that is exactly how it happened for me. I was happily married, or at least I thought so, for over 15 years, had the Facebook facade family that, smiled at every picture. I had a really successful career in ad sales, and my now ex-husband is an attorney. We had two beautiful boys at the time. They were 7 and 10. And I will never forget the day that everything and my entire world came crashing down around me, where I got that punch to the gut that you pray you never get. And all of my worst fears that night that I discovered some bad choices were being made, I realized that the life as I knew it was completely and utterly done and over. And it was in that moment that I not only felt, the gut punch, but it was also a wake-up call for me, because what it had showed me was that I had really lost who I was. I had lost my voice in our marriage, my voice as Wendy, and I had become wife, I had become employee, I had become mom, daughter, sister, and I didn't know who I was. And it was really in that moment that I looked myself in the mirror and said, oh my God, I don't even know how I got here. You're on that ride that you're on autopilot and you don't really know how you got to where you were. And so what I ended up realizing was that I needed to make some changes in my life. And that's what I intended to do. So I decided to dive headfirst into self-help books, podcasts, people like, all my colleagues now, right? Trying to get my hands on anything and everything. And I was looking for that quick fix, like so many of my clients do. And so many of us do. And so what I realized was that the quick fixes were actually making me more addicted to the quick fixes, and nothing was really getting to the root of solving my problem. And therapy was keeping me very rooted in my past. And please know I love therapy. I love my therapist, but I knew I needed something in addition to that. And that's when the universe handed me an unexpected gift, which was in the form of a Facebook post from a friend who was a life coach. And after speaking with her and reaching out, I realized that that was my path forward. And so after hiring a coach and deciding to actually enroll in the coaching programs, I realized that there was something really unique and special because in the course of a 2.5-day weekend, I actually had moved more through the pain and trauma of my divorce than I had the entire 8 months before. And so, and it was so powerful to me. And at the time, I didn't know what a life coach was. I didn't know what divorce coaching, I didn't know what half this stuff was. And I also realized that there weren't enough voices out there in the market really preaching this, and, slowly became aware that that's because we all hide and we don't want people to know. I was so afraid of being judged by my friends. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. And what I realized one day was that it was time for me to leave my old life behind and to leave my career. And so I took a leap of faith. Literally, I filed for divorce and I left corporate America at the same time, because to me, that was my past. And I wanted to really stay focused on my future. And my future was creating a life coaching business to help women like me. And I also do work with men. But at the time, it was very focused on helping women like me to really heal and recover from their divorce, unexpected trauma. And so the program that I've created was a result of my own experience in conjunction with the methodology of the coaching program that I am certified in. And so I created the Divorce Rehab, which helps people to go from I do to I did to I'm done. And it's a 5-step program. Rehab is an acronym where essentially the I do, I did, I'm done takes them from rediscovering their identity and voice. In order to get there, you've got to end your pity party and victim mindset. We heal the wounds, right? So really eulogizing and mourning the loss of the marriage, the best friend, the future, the finances, et cetera. And then moving into a place of acceptance. And then finally building from a brand new foundation by which you create your confident life. So it's been a journey, and one that I have realized was a gift, and that my divorce happened for me, not to me. And it's something that I have a lot of pride in helping other people to get through this experience, because nobody should do it alone. And ultimately, I have a larger mission, which is really to change the conversation around divorce. It is, I was talking to a client earlier today, and she was saying, God, I hate that word divorce. And it comes from it comes from an insecure place of feeling judged. And I say I'm divorced, and I'm like, yeah, I'm divorced, like greatest gift ever, and it's not that I'm a proponent of divorce. I'm not. I'm pro happy, peace, love, whatever that looks like for anybody out there. But what I am proud of is that my divorce was me taking a stand for myself. And I am proud to say that that was my journey, and that's what it took to wake me up.
Yeah, I love that so much. I feel like most, or at least that I could find was available to me when I got divorced, was books on relationships, how to have healthy relationships. But it wasn't, there were some really good things in terms of personal development books that definitely helped me get through, but they weren't really related specifically to divorce. And like you said, it's trauma. I know that exact, when you said that gut punch, I'm like, I remember that moment. I will never forget that moment when I was like, okay, this happened and now it is over. And now begins this painful journey. And it wasn't even like, I didn't know at the time, does it mean divorce? Does it mean this? Does it mean that? I just remember something horrible is happening. And what I thought I had, this, beautiful picture is not. And it was like, whoa. And that was like, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but it was also the first time, and I was pregnant with my daughter at the time, that I realized there are no guarantees in life. And I'm like, now I understand that statement, which is so silly, and I think I was 28 years old or something, 20. Yeah. And it seems so silly to go that long, but I kind of thought, well, you get married and this is your person and you're guaranteed this happiness. And it's not that at all. And just so much of what you said, I'm like, I remember all of these things. And then when you went through the rehab like that, I just kind of remember going through all of those cycles. But again, I just went through it in a, organic way. Had I had support like what you offer, oh my gosh, so needed and so amazing.
Yeah. And, and it's interesting that you say that, because I remember too, I was reading Gabby Bernstein, I was reading Brene Brown, and, I was having so much awareness, but okay, so what do I do with all of this? Right.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah. Okay. Check. Well, now how do I go out in the world? How do I do this? How do I get there? And that was always what I kept searching for, right? Like, that's what I'm talking about with like these quick fixes. Cause I was like, okay, I got this now. Oh, this looks like this is going to be the next thing. This is going to be my golden ticket. I always call it like everyone's looking for the magic pill, right? And it doesn't exist. But what does exist is, programs like mine. I have many competitors who are wonderful and we all do very different things. But what I think that people don't necessarily understand is that they want to avoid the pain, which is what I was trying to do by like, throwing myself into education. But you have to do the opposite of what your autopilot is telling you to do. And you really have to dive in. And so that's really what got me through, was really knowing I would come up for air, but I had to go headfirst into that trauma and into that pain, because if I didn't, I was going to be the same person. And I swore I was never going to be her again. I was never going to get myself into that place ever again. And it's wonderful that you've resurfaced and come out the other side. And, so many people do. And there are people that do it by themselves. But again, so many do the opposite and everyone stays in the quicksand.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's such power in going through it that I will look at people now that are just beginning that journey. And I actually have this kind of, I know, like I say to myself, I know you're suffering right now, but you're about to have some amazing things happen to you. And especially if you're open to it, but it's so difficult in that moment. So having support like you offer, and also just somebody who really understands that feeling of, I don't feel like I'm ever going to recover from this. I feel like it's just a dark tunnel. There's no light. And that's just it. To actually have someone tell you like, no, I've been there and this is how you can get through it. And here are the steps to do it. Speaking of which,
exactly.
Speaking of which, like, what are the top things that when you're working with your clients that you would advise, or for our listeners right now, like takeaways that they could take if they are in that place right now and they are wanting to recover? Because even a lot of our listeners will be years after a divorce and still have not recovered. It's everybody's at their different pace, but like you said, they're in that quicksand and they just cannot get through it.
Yep. And, and for everybody listening, I mean, I work with clients that are in the beginning, contemplating, even in the thick of it. And I even have clients that are years out of it, still suffering. Right. So my first piece of advice, or my first tip, is ask for help. And ask for help from somebody who knows what you are going through. Okay. I have an amazing family. I have amazing friends. Now, I also cleaned house on the friendship front through my divorce, which was actually very healthy. My point being that friends and family, while they love on us and you soak up every ounce of love that they give you, they actually are keeping you stuck. Because a lot of times what ends up happening is, I hear from people all the time, oh my God, I have the most amazing support system. Oh, that's great. Who do you have? Oh my God, my mom, my sister, my best friend. Oh, well, what support system do you have that has, can relate to what you're going through? Oh, well, I'm the only one in my circle and I'm the first one, or, I'm the last one. They were all divorced 10 years ago. Like I hear all these different versions of the story. And especially with divorce, because there's so much shame and embarrassment, right? You just want to tell like that tight knit group of yours because you don't want word getting out, right? Like I was trying to control my message so tight, I barely told anybody. And what the difference is that our friends and family, I mean, how many of you guys listening have heard people say, oh, it's his or her loss. Oh, you're so much better off with him or her, or, oh, you're going to be fine. Like you're going to find someone better. And you're in this place and you're just like, wait, I'm sorry. I am still like, I can't even get out of bed. And you're telling me like what's going to be happening down the road. And that's the difference, because our friends and family, they are loving on you, but you are making them very uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. They haven't been through it. It is their discomfort that they're projecting onto you, wanting to push it away. And the thing that you get to do is sit in it. You have to sit in it. You have to surrender to what comes up in order for you to get through. So tip number 1, ask for help. And the piece of that too is don't lone wolf it. I call it lone wolfing. Get out there and find people to support you who know what you're going through. So that's number 1. In order to get through to what I call the path of recovery is not only having people that support you, but also having what I call like a mindfulness practice. And it's not as complicated as perhaps that word sounds, but mindfulness is really about being aware of your thoughts and not placing judgment around them. And the way in which people can have a mindfulness practice, depending upon what works for them, meditation is great, yoga is great, and simple breathing. I say something that's called, like I always say, there's power in the pause. And to me, the power in the pause is taking a breath, choosing to respond instead of react. And it's really about just rooting yourself in the present moment. You don't have to react right away, but you just take a breath, be mindful of your thoughts. Don't judge them. Just let them be and let them come up. Because what we tend to do is we push them away. We start telling ourselves like, stop thinking about him, stop moaning, stop crying, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens is we suppress the emotions and they get compressed. And I call it this volcano effect ends up happening. And I know that people listening know what I'm talking about. And guess who gets the eruption? Usually your kids or your mom, it's somebody really close to you. And I can tell you, I am guilty. I erupted on my kids. I erupted on my mom. I erupted on my sister, my best friend, because I couldn't take it anymore. And it was like, and then I couldn't stop. And that's why people suppress it, because they're like, well, what if I can't stop? Great. Let it go. Let it flow. It's really important. It's so incredibly important.
I love all this so much. I actually just did an episode all about responding, not reacting. And I remember when you were talking about, having the feelings without judgment and just having that support and having somebody who actually understands what you've gone through. That to me was the best, is as knowing somebody who had gone through this and wasn't judging me in terms of the feelings that I had, but it was really being honest about the feelings that I had. So it wasn't just, oh, I feel like I failed at something. It was also a feeling of rejection. And that was part of the embarrassment and humiliation of it, was going through that and having people like, oh, why didn't it work out for you guys, type of thing. And most of the time people don't really care, they don't really care about themselves, but you feel like you're the center of gossip,
Absolutely. I was the center of gossip, and I'm somebody who cared a whole lot about what other people thought. Yep. And to be honest, that's why I lost a lot of friends, because the ones that wanted to gossip and get the details, it wasn't about me. It was about them needing to know what happened. And it shouldn't matter. I should matter. How my children are doing should matter, not what the story was. It doesn't matter what the story, I say this to my clients all the time. I don't care about the story. I care about what's going on underneath. Like, I want to know what's happening underneath you, the emotions, digging and really getting to the heart of what that is, because, the shame and the embarrassment, the bitterness, the resentment, like, it's toxic for your body, and you've got to have a way to let that go. Or I say release it. You need to have an outlet to release it. So,
yeah.
And then the last thing is really kind of tied into that as well, which is all about taking care of yourself. We use the word self-care, right? But like, people are like, I don't have time to go to the spa. Not that we can in COVID, but it's like you equate self-care to something grandiose, when self-care is really all about, I use this metaphor a lot. There's a reason when you get on an airplane and you're traveling with an infant that they say, put your face mask on first before assisting, your children. And they don't just say it on the microphone that they're talking. They also come up to you in the row and they say it again. So it's repetition of reminding yourself, right? They're reminding you first, then them, you first, then them, right? And it's the same thing in divorce. I was no good to my children. I was not where I needed to be by worrying about everybody else and not taking care of myself. And that's literally where I found myself when I was standing there after I had said the words, I want a divorce. And it's something that people need to be more mindful of. Again, mindfulness practice, self-care being one of them. And it's really, self-care is about, you know what? I'm having a hard day. I need to call in sick today. I need a personal day. Or it's, I need to cancel a meeting and push it back because I don't have it in me today. It can be taking a hot bath, right? I'm doing that tonight. I'm very excited. It can be giving yourself a facial, like, painting your nails if you want to, or maybe it's splurging on, I don't know, a new lipstick. Like, you go to Sephora, buy yourself something at Sephora, and the self-care piece is really important because we tend to be the last ones, especially women. We are the last ones that we think about. And we actually need to do the opposite, because what will our children do if we're not taking care of ourselves? Like, we get to take care of our kids, but we also get to teach our kids that in order for us to be the best version of ourselves for them means I get to take care of myself. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, especially as a mom, right? You're like, well, I'm so selfish, the guilt, and it's not. And when you make peace with understanding that you've got to fill your cup, you've got to put your oxygen mask on first. Once you embrace that practice and you are repetitive with it, it gets so much easier.
Well, it becomes empowering, and it's then you just start to respond to things differently. You start to act differently. You carry yourself differently because you feel more confident. In the beginning, it is super hard, like you said, because there's this guilt of I shouldn't be taking time to myself. I have this long list of things to do. My kids need me. This person needs me. But once you start doing it, it's kind of it's an empowering thing. And and I think it's because you grow to really love yourself more and appreciate yourself more. And you start to say, wow, I'm actually pretty good at all these other things, because you do become better at other things because you're better taken care of. It's that whole taking care of your engine, really, right? So that your vehicle can operate.
No, it is. I mean, it's so important. And my self-care looks different every day. The one steady self-care practice that I have that I will not give up is, I have my morning ritual. My morning ritual includes my meditation and gratitude practice. I work out every day. I have my coffee, and all of this happens before I wake my children up for school. I have a 14 and 11-year-old, and they're being homeschooled, online school right now. But what is so important to me is I've got to have that time in the morning to feed my soul. Otherwise, I'm worthless to everybody the rest of the day, because if I don't fill my cup first, I'm not filling other people's cups to the best of my ability.
Have you ever wanted to send an anonymous message or letter to someone? For me, the most powerful therapy has always been to write. If I feel angry, sad, super inspired, or just wanting to feel understood, I write, and often I write letters to someone when those feelings involve a particular person. When it comes to divorce, co-parenting, step-parenting, new relationships, and everything that comes along with blended families, there tends to be a lot we don't say and a lot we wish we could say. And it feels so good writing a letter as if you were going to send it to that person. It's like this huge pressure off of your chest. It's kind of cathartic. Well, we want to offer you that forum where you can have a voice, anonymously, of course. If there's something you've always wanted to say to someone, but knew that out of respect or to save drama or because you knew it wouldn't be received well, now is your chance to get it out there and have it be read, because we would like to serve as your voice. So here's what to do. Head over to everythingalways.co/forum. That's FORUM, everythingalways.co/forum, and fill out the form. We won't know who you are as it will be sent to us totally anonymously. It just hits our inbox, but we have no idea who it's coming from. As they come in, we will be sharing these on the podcast. We'll be able to reply to you. You'll still remain anonymous unless you reply back. And we'll let you know if it will be featured. It's 100% confidential. So what do you say? Ready to get it off your chest? Okay, back to the episode.
I love also that you said it could be having a meeting or, not doing something that you were maybe going to do that day because you're not going to be fully present. And I love that. Like you said, it could be anything, because some people are like, I can't sit there and get my nails done. I'm too fidgety, or I'm too this or that. And I think that self-care, like you said, is so unique to who you are. It might not have anything to do with pampering yourself or going to a spa. It might literally just be sitting and reading a magazine or listening to a podcast or doing something where you're not accountable to somebody else except for you to just chill.
Yeah. I mean, I was at Walgreens the other day picking up a prescription, and I noticed, I was like, oh, I haven't read an Us Weekly in like years. I was like, I'm going to grab an Us Weekly and this is going to be my weekend. And, I didn't have my kids this past weekend. And oh my God, I laid in bed Sunday morning and I read my Us Weekly. Oh, it was so magical. Yeah. And it was like, oh my gosh, I spent however many dollars it is now. Oh my God. And I got like an hour of pleasure. I didn't care if the stories I read were true. I just was like, this is so fun. This is like, it like awakened a part of me that I had forgotten. And that's even another thing, is that so many times we forget about the things that used to bring us joy, right? When we become a mom, for some reason, we just like throw our hobbies out the window, or we create new ones and we drop the old ones instead of taking them with us because we feel like we have to choose, right? And I even talked to somebody earlier today where, she got in touch with, she totally forgot that she plays guitar and she wants to get back into that. So now she picks up the guitar and she just plays it 10 minutes every morning. And it like gives her such a high. It looks different for everybody and it looks different every day. It doesn't have to be the same thing every day either. It doesn't.
It could be something you love. It could also be just like guilty pleasure. Like you said, I'm just going to read this magazine, turn off my brain to all the other things. I'm going to confess now, because I love somebody had told me, she's like, have you seen that show Married at First Sight? And I was like, no, what is that? She's like, literally these people just meet each other at the altar and they get married. And it was this whole thing. So I'm like, it's one night that I'm just kind of chilling on the couch. And I was like, I'm going to watch some just like mindless, don't have to think too hard. No, there's always, and we don't even watch that much TV because I feel like my husband and I, we start watching it, we fall asleep. But it was just one of those nights I'm like, I'm just going to start. Let me watch one episode. Then it was another one. Then it was another one. Next thing, he's watching it with me. And then I started watching it. I watched like a whole season in like 2 nights in bed. But it was just like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and watch these few episodes. Total guilty pleasure. And like, I never do that. I'm not really a Netflix binge person because I usually don't have the time. But I did it on a show that I would never watch. And I actually was like, that was super fun because I didn't have to think about anything. I just got to be entertained and watch these crazy people take big risks.
Oh yeah. So guilty of that. I mean, I watched the reality show on Netflix, also Selling Sunset, right? Because I live in LA.
Yes.
So, I see like the Oppenheim Group real estate signs when I drive over the hill to the west side where their area is that they specialize in. And I was like, I'm going to check this out. Plus, they're all over Us Weekly, right? Because one of the women's now engaged to, I don't know. Anyway, there's like drama. But I was just so fascinated by the show. And it was not necessarily the drama, but I started watching it because like here's a confession I'm making. I love at night when you're like driving or walking and you can like see inside people's houses. And I just like seeing how people decorate their homes. Like I love decorating, and it's something that I have such a deep love of and an appreciation of what other people do. So the other half of the reason why I was watching this show is because these houses, these are like mansions, right?
Oh, they're
and
gorgeous.
They're all decorated and stunning, and the furniture. So like I wanted to watch it just to see inside of these houses.
Yeah.
And
Good
that
idea.
was a guilty pleasure, right? So like there's so many different ways you can do it, and it feels really good.
It does. It's just being able to just enjoy. That's the whole key, is just enjoy.
Yes, it is.
I love that.
Yes.
So what does full recovery for somebody who has been divorced? What does full recovery look like?
So full recovery to me looks like being able to look at your divorce is ultimately like what I said earlier, is when you get to a place where you look at your divorce as a true gift and you see all the silver linings that have been handed to you. And it's not that and you know this, you've been divorced, like the triggers, things will still come up, especially when you're sharing children. Things come up unexpectedly, but recovery also means, it doesn't mean that you're healed, you're done, check the box. It's that you're healed and you have a toolkit that you get to pull from and know how to recover faster, right? Yeah. Something happened for me the other day where unexpectedly, my ex-husband and I were getting into a conversation about something, and I noticed I was getting triggered on the phone. And I used my toolkit and I got off the phone with him because I could tell I was going to like go down a path. And so a recovery to me means that you're able to you have your toolkit and you know how to approach the triggers when they come up. And also when you can look at not only your divorce as a gift, but also look at it and allow it to bring you peace. Mm. That may sound hard for some people to think about, but I knew that I was on the other side and I had finished my recovery when I didn't care what he was doing anymore. I didn't care the decisions that he was making anymore. And that to me is what peace meant, right? Peace means different things to everybody, but that's what it meant to me, is that I really was in this place where I was running in my lane, he's running in his lane, and then the kids are in the middle, in the center, I should say. And we're, on our separate paths, but our kids are what tie us together. And the choices that he makes are his, the choices that I make are mine. And to me, it's really about just being in that place where you have a confidence about you that they don't impact you anymore. And if they do, you pull out the tool and you use it and you move through it, and you move through it so fast.
Yeah. I love that so much. Yeah, there's that false notion that when you're healed, nothing gets to you anymore, nothing bothers you. And like you said, it's not about those things not happening or not triggering you. It's all about how you respond to them now, what you do with it. And I love too looking at the silver linings and what it has brought you, instead of people focusing on this happened and I'm a victim and, I'm still angry and bitter and this and that, because you can't really move forward when you're stuck in that negativity, that cycle of bad feelings.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is that, and this is something one of my colleagues, I use this quote that she wrote in her book all the time is, you drink the poison expecting the other person to die, and all you're doing is killing yourself. And
that's so good.
Right? Isn't that so good? I use it all. I was like, it's like the best quote. And that's what we do. And we keep drinking the poison, and it's not going to work. And what I look at my kids, And my kids struggled and they're doing great now, but they were struggling for a while. And I remember them, they went through this phase where they were like, do you hate daddy? Like, do you wish we were never born? Right. I mean, I'm sure people get these questions sometimes from their kids too. I'm being vulnerable. And, what I've always said to, well, first of all, I've never put my kids in the middle of the two of us ever. They've never felt unloved by either one of us ever throughout this process. But what I always say to them and what I say to people is that I will always love my ex-husband. I will always love this man. We were together for 22 years, married for 15. We share 2 amazing boys together. And everything that I loved about our marriage, about us, about him, are in my boys. And I get to keep that. I get to have that every single day. And I wouldn't trade that for anything in the world. We all think like, oh, hindsight is 2020. I should have done this. I should have done that. I don't like him, blah, blah. You know what? Like, it's okay to see somebody different for who they are today and still be okay with and love who they used to be when you guys were together. Like, I wouldn't trade anything. I wouldn't trade my life for anything in the world because I wouldn't be here if I hadn't gone through all that pain and heartache. I wouldn't have a business. I literally wouldn't have a business. I left corporate America to do this. So it's something I think people really need to, you get to kind of rethink how you see bad choices that people made and how they get to live with that. And you get to take responsibility for yours, and that's all you can control. But love on your babies and love that they were there for a purpose, because you wouldn't be where you are today.
I love that. I just got goosebumps like 10 times in a row. It's so beautiful. And it's so true. I think of that all the time. Like how I remember somebody was telling me, I think it might've been somebody in my family, was saying it was my cousin who she inherited 2 stepkids when she married her husband, and they were young at the time. And she would always say, I'm so grateful for their divorce. I'm grateful for that this happened because, and they've all co-parented well together, but she would say, because it brought us together and it brought, made stronger relationships. And it was like, wow, that's so amazing that you can, see it that way. And this was me, newly going through a divorce. And then I remember when the day came where I was just like, wow, look at these things that I've accomplished and done that I wouldn't have done had this not happened. It like catapulted me into doing things differently. And like you said, remembering, who am I? What do I want in my life?
Yep. And I haven't stopped since. I mean, people come in and out of your life for a reason. And, I'm a very spiritual person. I believe that my ex-husband and I were college sweethearts, and, he was half my adult life. I was with him. And I think we have a better relationship now than we did probably our last 5 years of marriage. And I bought him a holiday gift that he was just like blown away with, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but I say that giving people hope, right? That I was the girl that said, never again. I hate you. I don't want anything to do with you. Get out of my life. Like, I wish I didn't have to co-parent with you. That was me 4.5 years ago. And I'm standing here today going, I bought you a holiday present. I thought of you. He's got some stuff on his plate. I thought it would be really kind and he would appreciate it. And I wanted to do something nice for him. And we are friends, and to the point where my kids are like, you guys are getting along so well, like, and it's awesome and it's possible. Yeah. Right. And I tell my clients this all the time, like, you don't have to be friends with them right now, but don't close yourself off. Like I kind of tried to do, to the possibility that it can't be different. Right. It may take years, and that's okay. But you get to honor how you feel in this moment. And then you may have a different thought like I did, 3 years later, I had a different opinion, and that's okay too. As long as the other person is receptive to it, right? You get to make those choices. It's not an absolute.
Right.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
So for those, that are maybe just contemplating right now about thinking about it. And we do actually, we get people that are listening in just because they're trying to be prepared, like, do I really want to go down this road? But what advice do you have for those that are just starting, that are maybe separated and are just starting that process?
I've worked with women who are like, I want to leave. I don't know if I should pull the trigger, to I just pulled the trigger. And one of the things that I always try to make sure is that the choice and decision that they're making is truly authentic to what it is that they want, right? Because I think, again, divorces happen, marriages break up. And what's most important to me as I'm getting to know clients or trying to help them sort through their decision or an upcoming decision is really getting true to what it is that they want, tapping into what values are important to them, and do their values align with their spouse, their ex-spouse, or maybe you don't even know what your values are. Everything to me starts and ends with values. When you know what your values are, you are living a life that is complete and full. When you don't know what your values are, you're living a life in what I call dissonance. And at the end of the day, if you are finding yourself living in dissonance more than you're living in joy, then that's your wake-up call that something needs to change. Something gets to change. And if that change is, if there's a possibility for the change to happen, if your partner is willing to do the work with you, great. And you get to do the work too. And so a big piece is really you really looking inward and identifying what are your must-haves in life, right? Like when I was going through my process, honesty is still in my top 5, right? Honesty is a huge value. Well, guess what? My ex-husband didn't really find that to be the most valuable quality, right? Because he was dishonest. So when I looked at and when I was evaluating, we separated for almost an entire year before I pulled the trigger. And part of that was because I had invested 15 years, we had 2 kids, I was going to do the work and then ultimately decide based on that year of doing the work, am I still in the same place? Have I grown? Where is he? What is important to me, right? And being able to stand on my own 2 feet and say, this is what I want. This is what I'm not going to settle for less. And either you've done the work and you can be XYZ and your values align with mine, or guess what? You're out. And I'll never forget that day in our couples therapist office when I walked in and it was, D-Day, literally. And I said to him, I was like, so where are you at? And he was still in the, I don't know. And I looked at him in the face. I was like, well, I do. And I'm done. I want a divorce. And I walked out of the office and it was done. And it's because you do the work. You have to do the work. And the work starts with you creating a vision of what it is that you want and what is important to you. And either your partner is on board or they're not. And if they're not, it's okay, because you get to still stay in that vision and create that life and trust that somebody else will come in when you're ready, when it's meant to be, when your arms are open, and you get to have the life that you want and you don't get to settle. It's not time to settle anymore. So don't let your fears get the best of you.
So good. So good.
Thank you.
So I know you've got tons of links that we're going to, not tons, but we've got all the places to find you. I know that listeners can go to wendysterling.net, correct?
Yes. And I am also, I'm all over social media, but I also am on Instagram. My handle is Divorce Rehab with Wendy. I'm also on Facebook, Wendy Sterling, and I have a Facebook group for divorcees. It's called the Divorce Rehab. I also have my own podcast, which is called the Divorce Woman's Guide that you guys can check out too, where I talk about the things us divorcees are thinking, but not necessarily always talking about. So I'm kind of out there. So I would love to connect.
Sterling, STER, just in case you're wondering, wendysterling.net. And we'll have links to all of these, your Instagram, your Facebook, your podcast, everything in our show notes. But you also have done something so generous that I'm sure our listeners, after hearing this interview, is going to be so excited to take advantage. And that's a free 15-minute call with you, which is awesome.
Yeah. And, listen, we all, we don't always have an outlet to vent or to just get support from somebody that understands what we're going through. So I would love to offer all of your listeners a complimentary, 0 strings attached 15-minute call with me. I'm really good at coaching. I could coach in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as you're on board with the pace. I'd love to support your audience in something that they're struggling with and to give them some actionable takeaways from there. Or if they're even just simply looking for referrals, I have the most incredible network of professionals in my arsenal that I refer out to, or perhaps you don't even know who to go to, where to start. I will tell you, I will guide you, I will give you vetted, trustworthy professionals that I have strong relationships with. So however it is that you guys want to use that 15 minutes, it's up to you. But ultimately, it's really with the foundation of getting you on your road to recovery.
Oh, I wish I had known you way back when.
Me too.
So great. So I'm going to have a link to where you can book that call as well. So if you go to the show notes, you will see that link, or if you go to the podcast page at everythingalways.co. And oh my gosh, Wendy, this was amazing. I appreciate you so much. You've just dropped so many genius tips for everyone listening. It's just so good. And I thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you everybody for tuning in today. I'm so grateful for the work that you do and having guests on that can support people going through this experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening. And we like to say, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you love and be bold enough to share it with someone you don't. See you next time.